Naka kia ora tātou. Matai o via ba vinaka na kena soli and dona ngona vinaka ngoa me main dona Kedai. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Mr. Anaru Fraser, GM for Hui-E, and his team for giving us this space to share topical issues pertinent to us as Fiji peoples in Aotearoa. I'm speaking here specifically for the indigenous Fijians. My name is Elisapeci, as I have introduced earlier, Chair and founder for the New Zealand Council for Fiji Communities Research Projects. We are self-funded and do not access any government fundings. We have reps from far north in Kedai, Whangarei, Auckland, Hamilton, Palmerston North, Te-Whanganui-a-Tara, Blenheim, Nelson and Christchurch. Today I will touch on three main topics: responses to questions sent out by Hui intern Eric Elder. As a backdrop, I will briefly touch on topical issues such as Stats New Zealand, ethnicity classification, Indigenous Fijian. Is it a flawed design now causing an identity crisis amongst Fiji communities in Aotearoa, New Zealand? And the other one is proposed Aotearoa language policy, where smaller languages sit, i.e. Fijian language and other minority languages from the Pacific Plus community and heritage languages in Aotearoa. I'm passionate about this because I'm an interpreter and an oral historian, researcher, and a translator as well. Re-updates Ref Stats New Zealand, we have circulated amongst our think tank, the Wellington think tank, and titled it Incorrect Labeling of Fijian Indigenous and Indians, Indo-Fijians or Fiji Indians in Aotearoa. Update to our team and Lewe think tank on discussion with relevant authorities in New Zealand regarding incorrect labeling. We believe this has led to an upsurge of figures reflected on New Zealand census data 2013 when compared to the previous New Zealand census. Refer Proud Pacifica report on Pacifica Net Working Group, which I'm also a member of, and I think Mr. Anaru has got that in the next lineup for speech. Further research by our Lewe think tank has showed that there is some confusion with regards to tags used by Stats New Zealand. Our response from New Zealand Census team indicated the following. The classification of ethnicity is not directly geographically based, but is a mix of concepts such as common origins or ancestry and cultural affiliation, which may include religion, customs, or language. It is not a measure of race, nationality, or citizenship. Stats New Zealand. Our Lewe research comment, if this is to be the case, why then has the word Fijian been added to that of Indian, where there is no common origins or ancestry, cultural affiliation, which may include religion, customs, or language? Fijians and Indians do not share common ancestry, nor have in common origins or cultural affiliations. The two are poles apart. For example, can we claim that Maori and Pākehā have common origins or ancestry and cultural affiliation in New Zealand? In addition, while their measure, Stats New Zealand, is not about race, nationality, or citizenship, why then have they used the two tags, which are both nouns, and point towards two distinct ethnicity, Fijians and Indians? How then did Stats New Zealand team arrive at combining these two words? Our customs and language are very different, and so does our religion. Our concluding comments on that, it's important to get it right for those responsible in designing these details, because this ultimately impacts policy implemented, as in this instance, the New Zealand Census data and ethnicity classification. It has a lot of bearings on us as Fijian indigenous peoples in Aotearoa. Are we caught between policies in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and that of Fiji? What about those designing these policies in Aotearoa, New Zealand? Is he or she aligned in any way? In our observation, the New Zealand survey and marketing companies seem to have a big input in these designs and implementation. We firmly think the injustices of policies in Fiji post-2006 coup through to changes of who we are as the Fijian race as per the 2013 Constitution to today, it must not have a flow-on effect to Aotearoa and alter or redefine our identity as Indigenous Fijians in Aotearoa. There has been development to this end. A team of 4 or 5 people from Stat New Zealand called me for a telephone conference last Wednesday, 13th September. The summation to that, in my view, I was just bulldozed by this team of so-called experts who were adamant that their design for ethnicity classification for us in Aotearoa remains. We have since requested another meeting with CEO for Stats New Zealand. We are waiting a reply on this. A comment from the Pacific, one of the Pacific directors and GM for vulnerable children, who came back saying, Adi Elisapeci, you raised valid concerns and not a new one. I wonder whether this is something that could be considered by MPP if it isn't already. It would be ideal to have an updated position for government on this important matter. I've raised this with MPP before, who were guided by stats definition, but I think it's a matter that needs revisiting. I've CC'd Catherine, Deputy CE, and the policy manager for MPP for their consideration and advice. So that's the input from one of the seniors in government that looks after Pacific interests. And the answers to Eric's from Hui, we compiled a sample of, he wanted a sample of community sector thoughts and feelings regarding the 2017 election. Eric was interested in what New Zealand Council of Fiji Communities might have to say about the election, whether this is a form of an official manifesto, email, etc. He wanted to hear what 2017 election means to our organization. So, in response to Eric's email, we copied all our groups and put it out on our website. And we answered as follows. These are his questions. What are the most important issues for you, for your community? And we mentioned the racial identity crisis in view of policy changes that is impacting from Fiji and having a flow-on effect in New Zealand. And I think I don't need to go further into that. The only part that I really would like to draw on that in the growth of Fijians in New Zealand, which is now confused, has increased by 47%. And we used to be one of the last. Now we're sort of next to Samoans, so we don't know where the figures are coming in from, and we think it's the design. Then we looked at our language as well. Our languages has dropped to 43% in New Zealand that can fluently speak the language. I was given funding by Ministry of Culture and Heritage to do oral history interviews on our Indigenous in Wellington. And I found that 35 years below can't even hold a 3-hour interview in their mother tongue. So that's a worry for me and for our languages. And home ownership, Fijians, as part of the Pacific percentage, collectively falls within 18.5% when compared to Maori, 28.2%, Asian, 34.8%, European, 56.8%. So we fall within the lower bracket of owning homes. Health and well-being in New Zealand, Fijians as part of the Pacific families identifies with several issues ranging from obesity, financial and psychological stresses noted in 2016 Families and Whanau Status Report across 6 strategies of family types from single mom to 2 couples. Life expectancy is lower in New Zealand for Pacific people, Fijians included. Women 78.7 years, men 74.5, when compared with 83.2 years women, 79.5 men in total for New Zealand population. 66.7% Pacific adults 15 years and over are obese. Fijians are part of this story. Pacific children are also likely to be obese compared to other kids. Household overcrowding and hospital admission. 45% of Pacific kids 0 to 16 years are subject to overcrowding. This includes Fijians in New Zealand as well. Example, 34% admission of Pacific peoples include Fijians are due to meningococcal diseases, which is said to be due to overcrowding. Pacific education, Fijians as part of the overall Pacific segment based on current national standards rate 65%, reading 60%, writing 62%. Mathematics is estimated to fall below the 2017 Pacific Education Plan, which had targeted 85%. The stats are not broken down, and so it's unclear what the actual percentage of these ratings are Fijians. The figures for all of the above has been lifted from the Pacific peoples in New Zealand. How has the government worked on their own with your organization to address these problems? That's the question Eric asked. The answer was initiative by various government agencies are being rolled out. For example, MSD organized national events inviting Pacific leaders of organizations in 3 specific locations in 2016-2017. This then has translated to community-led groups within their major cities, i.e. Wellington Central, to meet monthly and discuss topical issues being faced by various groups. I participate in that, and we're currently looking at Pacific kids being admitted in Wellington Hospital, and there are other task groups looking at other issues as well. While this is a start, there are some factors that ought to be streamlined so that these groups do not end up validating a specific group of individuals that may find favor in accessing funds while others do not. This is a gray area and ought to be monitored closely. For the Fiji communities in New Zealand, the identity crisis becomes a barrier. There are elements of those who hold key functions in government that are influential in policy issues, which ultimately impacts on the wider Fiji communities. Where have they failed to address the problems? The clique club syndrome becomes a barrier. As noted earlier, the flow-on effect of what policies are being implemented in Fiji affects us here in New Zealand to a degree, in particular the identity crisis. Division amongst Fiji communities in New Zealand reflects this. The system in New Zealand seems to favor those with bigger money, bargaining power, than the everyday Joe Block down the road. What issues are most important to you in the upcoming election? Education, health, immigration, employment, economics, entrepreneurs, reduce homelessness, focus on SDGs. And what do you hope to see from those running for office and eventually the new government? To be transparent with voters and not just false promises just to win votes. Government that are people-orientated. The above are just some of the points I think might be of interest to you that I have picked from our community in Aotearoa. And last and not the least, in our summation, we found that the surveys and marketing companies in New Zealand drive policy. Thank you. Kia ora tātou.
Thank you. I'm actually reminded of